the mayor appoint a chair or vice chair for the Bicycle Advisory Committee, or I guess the chair only. I was going to open it up to the group to see if anyone would like to facilitate today's meeting. And if not, then staff can just kind of continue, keep it moving.
Melissa, this is Ani speaking. It'd be great for staff to continue to keep it moving.
Okay. Thanks, Ani.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to do quick member attendance to see who's in the room, so to speak. So just go down the list here. I didn't see Taloria Allen, but let's go through it just in case. Taloria Allen. Okay. Adam J. Williams. Sandra Rodriguez. Captain Christine Anthony Miller. Okay. Not present. Beth Martin. Not present. Tom Thompson, we heard you.
Hear me again.
Thanks. Clark Martinson, he said he wasn't going to be able to meet today. Lisa Griff.
Yes, I'm here.
Present. Jessica Wiggins.
I'm here.
Present. Yahaina Mahmoud. Not present. Judith Villarreal. Not present. Amar Mohite. Not present. Mike Van Dusen.
Van Dusen present.
Mike is present. Ana Ramirez Huerta. Not present. Ani Blair.
Here.
Okay. Present. And Alejandro Perez. Not present. Robin Holzer.
I'm here.
Robin's present. Vian McReynolds. Not present. Ian Lavacek is not here, but who do we have here from Public Works today?
Yeah, Sayed Ali. I'm reporting from TDO. Work for Ian, with Ian.
Welcome, Ali. Anybody
Thank
else?
Anna Ramirez with TikTok.
Oh, thanks, Anna. Okay. Juvenal Robles. Not present. And David Fields, on behalf of David Fields, we have Sharon Moses Burnside here today.
Present.
Thank you, Sharon. All right. Getting started. Just for those who may not be familiar, we like to stay on mute until you're identified by the chair or the facilitator, I guess in this case, on this meeting. If you're calling in, you can press *6 to mute or unmute yourself. And again, just kind of wait to be recognized, but we don't use the hand function, the raise your hand function. So just feel free to unmute and just state your name, say that you want to speak, so that we can just call on you and you can continue speaking. And that's just how we can kind of keep the organization throughout the meeting. So today's agenda, we don't have a chair appointed just yet, but if anybody has any pop-offs or announcements, I think that would be helpful. I know that some people have to leave a little bit early, so I was wondering if it would be okay if we moved a few brief announcements from the planning department up to the beginning. And then that's also a time where we can invite any short updates that other folks may have from the BAC.
Sounds good.
Great. So Sharon,
need a motion or a second?
No, it's fine.
All right.
Just general.
Make it happen, Melissa.
Great, thanks. Sharon, would you like to share
Sure.
some of our updates?
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody virtually. Hope everybody's safe and well. I'm sitting in for David today, as Melissa mentioned. Just want to give you a couple of heads up for the no parking in the bike lane ordinance. public comment period on the no parking in the bike lane ordinance, it closed, but we want you guys to know that it was like 94% of the comments were in favor of this no parking in the bike lane. So we anticipate the ordinance going to City Council for consideration. We're hoping that it will happen on September 23rd. That's what we're looking for, and we'll keep you posted. If you have any questions, you can always touch and reach out to Melissa via email. That's one of the main things. We're excited about that. 94% is pretty good. Then we want to tell you about the AARP Community Challenge Grant that was won by one of our divisions here in Planning and Development. It wasn't the Transportation Division, but what's the name of the division, Melissa? I keep forgetting their name. Is it a community and regional? Anyway,
Regional planning.
Yeah, it is community and regional. Okay, great. Now, the Planning and Development Department, it was awarded an AARP Community Challenge Grant. This Community Challenge Grant is a program. It's not a part of the AARP's nationwide initiative. Sorry, it is a part of the nationwide initiative for livable communities. So we just kind of want to give you guys an update because it is affecting the Transportation Division as we are assisting them. This initiative will help residents of all ages by transforming communities into great places to live. The grant supports the creation of a transportation demonstration toolkit. The toolkit will be used to educate the public on the benefits from the use of bike lanes, crosswalks, and other mobility resolutions. Among 184 organizations nationwide, out of all of those that applied, the Planning and Development Department was among the 5 organizations, only 5 to receive the grant. The temporary transition demonstration will allow, this is where they're going to start. They're starting in the Gulfton area with a pop-up bicycle lane, and it's going to allow the Gulfton area with members to kind of put their hands on, get involved, see the real life bicycle facility, envisioned through a pop-up lane. And that way people will get experiences with it. And hopefully if they like it, it'll be something that we can continue to do in the area. So we're going to try that pop-up bicycle facility in the fall. We're looking around October. They're looking at a possible date somewhere near Halloween, but I can't confirm any actual date for you guys yet. Again, it's not the Transportation Division. We're just assisting because it's transportation related. But if you have any comments or any concerns, just let us know. Send an email to Melissa. But again, it's not our project. We are assisting, but we're doing what we can to help facilitate this process and make sure that it goes well, and hopefully make sure it's a great idea for the community and that it's a good buy-in, and that we see, something productive come out of this grant. Then I want to mention to you guys about the Bike to Work Day, BTWD, which you all know was rescheduled or canceled because of COVID. We've had all this drama, but the National Bike to Work Day was rescheduled to September 22nd. So the City of Houston is participating in that National Bike to Work Day. Melissa and I are spearheading it, and Melissa's great as usual. The website should be coming up soon, but one thing we did, we looked and kind of researched what some of the other cities did, and one city in particular called it Bike to Wherever Day. We love that idea because when we think about what's going on with COVID-19, people are staying home and they're not going to work. So we kind of bit into that idea and we call it Bike to Wherever Day. It's happening Tuesday, September 22nd. It will be virtual. We're asking all of you to participate. You're gonna take pictures of wherever you're biking and send it in. You can send an email to Melissa, you can send an email to the hashtag, and you can find all this information on our website. She's already created the flyer and that's available and going out, but we're gonna update the website very, very, very soon. And I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, give us a call. Look for more information at houstonbikeplan.org and just join in on the fun. We're gonna make September 22nd a great day, and we're gonna make the best out of a serious situation. We're gonna turn it into something good for the city and for Bike to Work, but we're biking to wherever. So don't miss out on the fun. That's all I have. Hope it didn't take too long.
Not at all. There's a comment from Ani in the chat. Is this the same? I think this was related to the Gulfton pop-up bike lane. Is this the same as the public announcement or news article regarding changes coming to Gulfton to expand bike walk access?
I honestly don't know, Ani. I don't want to say it is if it's not. I know it may be indirectly related in what we're trying to do to assist the area, but this is something we just recently received confirmation on. So I think it's probably a part of it indirectly, if not directly, as we try to expand bikeways in that area. But I don't want to confirm 100% in case I'm telling you the wrong thing. But I'm sure it's all tied in together because that's the whole process of trying to get these bikeways and these facilities expanded in the Gulfton area. You know, this has been a plan for us for a while. So when they came to us and talked to us about where should we do a pop-up facility, one of the suggestions that we made, I think it was Lauren Grove, was to do a pop-up facility in Gulfton because of the work that we're trying to do out there.
This is Robin. Someone else may have fresher intel than I do. My impression is there are 3 things going on. Oh, sorry. I can be a human. Hi. My impression is there are at least three things going on in Gulfton right now, and I think they're separate and apart. The first is the city is seeking teams for consultants to develop a sidewalk plan that's tied with integrated with stormwater infrastructure improvements. That's one thing. The second thing is Connect Communities, which is a nonprofit in Gulfton, worked with Public Works to develop a street improvement plan through Gulfton for Hillcroft. And my impression is that Public Works is still working to advance some of those longer term projects through the CIP process. And then my impression is that this challenge grant is a third separate thing that lines up nicely at the same time as these other things, but is actually a whole separate thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Robert. And that's why I don't want to say that, yes, it's definitely, but it does all tie into the bigger picture. And that much we are aware of, that it's tying into what the plan was for this area. And we're really excited about it. So we hope to see you guys out there, whatever day they choose. And of course,
sure.
let you know.
Thanks, Sharon.
You're welcome. I hope that answers your question, Ani, to the best of my ability.
It does. Thank you so much. I was just curious because it seems like it's definitely thinking about the planning in line with what's happening with Vision Zero and some of the other city announcements and plans. But what's happening just south of there on Fondren is kind of contradicting that approach. And so I was just wondering if they were aligned or if they just happen to be developed in two completely different tracks or anything like that. But what you just provided is super helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome. That's it for me.
Thanks, Sharon. Are there any other updates that anybody has, like real quick? Okay. I noticed that we have a few members of the public here today, so I was going to open it up to public comment. If anyone has any, we allow, we speak out, I guess, comments that are sent to us via email before 2 p.m. the day of the meeting. I did not receive any comments online, so if you're joining us via phone or here, feel free to just, unmute, let us know who you are, and let us know if you have a comment.
Hi, Melissa. This is Jamila. Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Jamila.
Hi. I just wanted to tell Sharon kudos on the Bike Wherever day. We are also promoting Bike to Work /Anywhere week that same week with the Commute Solutions Program at the Houston Galveston Area Council. And so we'll be sending out information about that week, but it's kind of the same sort of thing. Bike Anywhere, tag us. We'll be doing some drawings, and just want to highlight the benefits of bicycling during the time. We may also have an event. If we do, I'll send that to you, Melissa. We have a new driver safety course that we started doing before the pandemic, and then we kind of put it on pause. And we're going to see if we can bring that back online. And it's a driver safety course, but it's one that focuses on how to drive around bicycles. And so we're looking forward to putting something together to present during that week. And as we finalize that, we'll get the information out to everyone.
Awesome.
Hey, may I just jump in here and say thank you, Jamila. we haven't had a chance to talk about Bike to Wherever Day.
I know.
We've been kind of just going so fast, but I did want to say we did partner with Bike Houston, and we're working with B-Cycle as well. So we look forward to working with you in any way possible. We just had to make sure that we did not let this day get by without acknowledging Bike to Wherever. So we hustled up an idea really quickly. And
no, that's perfect. We're gonna, I made a note so we can add it to the website. We're trying to capture everything everyone's doing.
Yeah.
So I made a note so that we can add, we already have B-Cycles on there. So I'm gonna add yours too, so that everyone knows what's happening that week.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, if there are none, we also have another opportunity at the end of the meeting for anybody else who may join us later on. Okay, so our Vision Zero action update. Unfortunately, Lauren Grove was double booked, so I will be giving our update on the Vision Zero action plan. So specifically, we have been working on kind of these 4 areas so far. Collecting and analyzing crash data. The high injury network was identified and can also be found on our website. If you go to our Vision Zero website, and maybe Sharon or Brian could also put this in the chat for everybody. We have a map up that shows the high injury network, as well as an area for folks to comment and engage with that map, and showing us kind of where unsafe places or places that you feel unsafe may be. It's really interesting to see how they correlate to the high injury network. But ultimately, when we identified, basically where the most deaths and serious injuries and the crashes were occurring on our streets, we found that nearly 60% of traffic deaths and serious injuries are occurring on just 6% of our streets in Houston. And that's going to be an ongoing refinement, and using that data to further analyze like pedestrian crashes and bicyclist crashes, and determining kind of more typologies or street typologies or elements of street design that we're seeing in these high crash locations and along our in our high injury network, and then being able to say, okay, how are those elements also in the rest of our street network, so that we can target places, maybe more systematically in that respect. Another thing we've been up to is community engagement. So we've held pretty recently, while we've been developing action items, a couple open houses for feedback on those actions. And so that was really great. I did see a few of you there, which was awesome. Thank you for attending. We've been asking through a series of tools, not only at the meetings, but also on our website. We have a survey, as well as the map tool in the pledge, and I've done a bunch of other ways of interacting with the actions, asking these types of questions like, what do safe streets mean to you? Where do you feel unsafe while you are using our streets? Which actions should the city take first to improve street safety? And so kind of also trying to get to that, helping us like prioritize actions over time. So while we did extend the public comment period for actions, right now on our Let's Talk Houston page, that's kind of done, but we do have the map and the survey done, available. I'm sorry. I apologize. So we do have the map and survey still available for folks to provide their feedback. While we were developing action items, we had all of the draft actions up there, and we did get a lot of comments on people's feedback on those, as well as like how far are they going, far enough, are there things that we missed, and we are here today to really kind of dive into those a little bit deeper with the BAC specifically. And while we do have the kind of public comment period closing, we are refining those still with the task force executive committee in the Vision Zero process. And we expect to have a draft Vision Zero action plan available in its entirety with the updated actions by the end of the month, September 30th.
Melissa, this is Anna Ramirez.
Yeah.
Could I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, there's been several cyclists that have come to the BAC and provided a public comment, normally verbal, but maybe sometimes via email. And obviously, I don't know if it's been, recorded because it's been virtual or maybe in the meeting minutes. Could those comments that the cyclists have done in terms of maintenance, could those be transferred to Vision Zero as public comments as well? Even though they were done to the BAC, is there that possibility? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so that was something that Lauren and I were just talking about this morning about how maintenance equals safety for a lot of people. And we've been getting a couple comments related to that through the Vision Zero process, like on the Let's Talk Houston page. So it's definitely, we've heard it at the BAC, and I've been working and been in touch with Lauren about like everything that's in the action plan thus far. But that's why I'd also like to get y'all's eyes on the action items to just kind of make sure that, are we going far enough? Does this make sense? Is this based on like our understandings of, what feels unsafe and what we've been hearing from bicyclists in Houston?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if having that comment that they came to the BAC be part of the record or the summary. I'm not sure how Vision Zero comments are going to be captured, would really resonate with the people that have come to the VAC with those comments, as to say that we've heard them and we've basically taken their comment, whatever that might have been. But I know, like you said, several on maintenance, and we've given them to Vision Zero in whichever form they were captured, be it meeting minutes or, through the recordings, or so that they feel like, they have been heard and we've actually transferred their comments as part of the comments for the Vision Zero. Just an idea. I'm not even sure if it's possible, but
I know that I've definitely done that for emails because it's so much easier to be like, okay, they're, emailing the Bikeways program and they have safety concerns. Obviously, I try to push them to Vision Zero, and I also forward that comment on to Lauren, and that's part of our Vision Zero comments because it's related directly to safety. I don't know, I haven't been as systematic about it for vocal comments, audio through like our meetings. So that's a good suggestion, and I could definitely take a look at that and see if we need kind of more, because I feel like a lot of the things that have been said at the meetings like are also things we're hearing in the emails, and we're also hearing throughout a lot of the Vision Zero comments in the bike plan. So I can take a look though, and definitely work with Lauren on that.
I think that the cyclists would appreciate it because they've taken the extra step of showing up and being verbal about it. So it's just something to consider. Thank you, Melissa.
Great. Okay.
Hey, Melissa, before you go on, I know it's not a formal meeting, but I see in the chat box that Amar Mohite, he is here, just arrived a little late,
right.
so I wanted to make sure he was in attendance on the list.
Thanks,
Thank
Sharon.
You're welcome.
So with our draft zero, Vision Zero actions, so yes, we held the virtual public open house on June 9th of, kind of giving people an overview of what the Vision Zero process has been. August 18th and 19th, we did virtual public open houses again, looking at the draft actions and making sure that they go together if we're missing anything. And we got a lot of really great feedback on there. I facilitated both of the biking and walking groups. So I was able to hear like directly what folks had concerns about or ideas about related to biking and walking for Vision Zero. Now that Lauren and the team is really working on having those individual department meetings and agency meetings to to prioritize different actions and also determine levels of commitment. A lot of folks different agencies and different departments are going to be leading these actions, and we need them committed today before we, adopt the plan and begin implementation. We need to know that we're committed to these actions before we, move forward. And so those are the conversations that are being had today. So the way that the Vision Zero actions are being kind of categorized, we have overarching items. We have this whole area of overarching around safe systems, accountability, communication, education that are going to touch all different modes. Then we have actions broken out by mode, essentially, by saying, making biking safe, make driving safe, make connecting to transit safe, make walking safe. There's still obviously some overlap there. Biking actions related to biking are also in transit, and walking and biking right now are combined in the same one, in the same kind of area, so to speak. So when we review these actions, I want us to have these types of questions in mind. This is what Lauren's doing with her committee members, of looking at, is the language clear for the public, so that we know, so they know what we're trying to do. That's the level of accountability. No one's going to be able to hold us accountable if they don't know and understand what we're trying to do here. What is missing? Is there something, an action that we're totally missing from the list? And the actions that we have, are they measurable? How can they be measured? Because we're also looking at how we're going to measure the implementation of the action plan. And how might the actions be inadvertently continuing systemic racism? So in my head all day, I've just had this statement of, if you're on this side of do no harm, I think you're part of the problem. So we're not here to just do no harm. We're here to try to make things better. And that may mean that having difficult conversations. So that's what we're trying to do. And I hope that we're always looking at these actions with a lens to systemic racism, inequality, and how do we elevate kind of vulnerable populations and their experiences. I was reading a really great article about how it shouldn't always be about consensus building. Maybe it's about just lifting up marginalized populations, perspectives and views, and really what they think that we should be doing. So that's the conversation that we need to have. And then finally, what is a priority? Or what is priority among all these actions? We have a long list, but we need to understand that the action plan is really to get things done for 2 years, and then things will be reassessed. So it's great to have a long list of everything that's possible, but it really comes down to what are we committing to do in the next 2 years. So there's a couple different ways of thinking about that. It could be low-hanging fruit, easy wins, or it could be thinking about what it would have the biggest impact. If we didn't do this, we would not be able to move forward. So things that have big impacts may take a little bit longer, but if we get it started now, that would be the biggest way to get to 0 fatalities by 2030. Okay, with that, I'm going to open up the Excel file.
Melissa, I have a question, if it's okay.
Yes.
For the kind of 2-year action plan that Vision Zero is looking to implement, does that include, or can it include, the bike plan projects like 11th Street, like Patterson? Where are those kind of in this Vision Zero action plan?
That's a great question. So I'm going to scroll down to the biking section, which is, I'll be honest, I feel kind of small. So that's why I also would like to talk to the BAC about this. So 9B here is install 25 miles of high comfort bicycle facilities every year in street right of way or on city owned public land. This is something I'm workshopping right now. This is an action directly tied to what the city's actions will be around high comfort bike facilities every year. So this is not taking into consideration all of our wonderful partnerships and all of the wonderful people that we have today and on the BAC in general that are implementing bike lanes all throughout Houston. So this is the city of Houston's commitment to high comfort bicycle facilities. So this would include 11th Street, Patterson, all of those things. And putting a timeline on it and saying that like every year that this number of miles needs to be happening. And where we can do that as quickly as possible is in street right of way, or thinking about maybe there might be some small connections that need to happen. Sometimes this happens, right, around city-owned facilities. So we own the land. It may be easier to accommodate a short trail that gets you, that's just, really high comfort and gets you to the bayou easier than going on street. So thinking about those types of connections that can be made as well. And we can be specific here, including saying that we're going to fulfill the 11th Street, the Patterson Street bikeways, and other things that we have in design. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, I kind of feel like deja vu a little bit with having another plan and doing prioritization when, we've had at least a few projects that we've really just been trying to get out the door and spend the money with. So my fear is that we just say, 25 miles is an awesome goal, but can we get more specific about them? And can we maybe put cost estimates to them too? Like what planning level details can we add to make that more of a starting point?
That's a great point. Yes, we could. I mean, especially if we're looking at this as 2 years, I think we could do the project prioritization necessary to be more specific.
This is Lacey Griff. I have another question. So does by city-owned public land, does that not include the Centerpoint easement trails, which is not city-owned, it's Centerpoint owned, but there's the agreement between the city and the Centerpoint that trails can be built there?
Right. So that can include, should we, do you want it to include Centerpoint? It can include it, absolutely.
I mean, there's a few of those that are planned, so
yeah, I guess I get confused sometimes that like public Parks Board uses city money, and so Parks Board is a part of the city of Houston.
Not always. We don't always use city money though.
Right.
Right.
This is Robin. Can I jump in behind Lisa on this one?
Sure.
I was going to save it for a later observation, but this seems like a great place to surface the idea. My initial read of many of our actions is that this action plan reads like fairly narrowly, not completely narrowly, but fairly narrowly about what does the city of Houston specifically own and control completely. That there are places where we're identifying partners for things we have to work together on, but my hope as an overarching comment for our Houston Vision Zero action plan is that we will think of this as a convening document across agencies, not just narrowly the city, in which we use our moral authority over the safety of all of the streets and facilities in the city of Houston to bring together anyone we need to bring together to make our streets safer for all the users. And so, yes, absolutely, we should have a specific measurable goal of how many miles of bikeways we'll build on city-owned land. And right next to it, we need an even bigger goal that's a specific measurable goal of how we're going to work with our partners to facilitate construction of even more miles on stuff that we don't own. And that's just like one concrete example, but I think throughout each of the areas, each of the subject areas, there are places where we can leverage our partnerships much more broadly than we have in the draft action plan steps.
This is Anna Ramirez. I had a question, maybe not a follow-up. I don't know. It might be a follow-up of several things, but one of the things, in this idea, like Jessica mentioned about the rankings, and we've, the fact that it's been ranked multiple times, and there's definitely projects like 11th Street and Patterson that have been discussed. And going back, Melissa, to your previous slide about, systemic racism, or EJ communities, that's where, you have like the easy wins, but then you might have streets like 11th Street and Patterson that might be ready to go or already have some bedding, but that might not be in EJ areas. So this is where I guess one of the questions for, that objective is there a need for a new ranking or not? I guess I just kind of I heard that we have some that might be easy wins or that might be further along in the vetting, even with communities, and then also the interest of having it, in EJ communities and really tackling systemic racism and access. So I don't know what what would that mean? Would you have to re-rank or not? I guess it's just a question out there.
Definitely. Absolutely. I mean, this is where, yeah, I don't have all the answers, and it's good to have bring out as many questions as possible and today, so that we can work through that over the next few weeks.
Melissa, this is Lisa Griff again. I just wanted to bring up one other project that we're trying to get done, which is like a short, 2-mile connector project called at Cullen Park along Barker Cypress. So I wanted to get that on the list if we're starting a list.
Oh yes, the Cullen Park project. Okay, so going through the actions, I just, we got really focused on this one, which I think is really important. This one was always rising to the top in terms of prioritization. Really, I would say building sidewalks, filling gaps of sidewalks and building bikeways was really what the public wanted to see at our 2 open house meetings that we had last month. But looking at entire extending the approach is extend biking, build out low stress region-wide bike network. And the actions are, the first one is to develop a 2-year implementation plan for elements of the Houston Bike Plan, coordinating feedback with the road safety audits and public feedback on Vision Zero to any future bike plan updates. This is something we're pretty much already doing. So last year we talked about the biennial report, and we got a lot of really great, we basically updated all the metrics from the bike plan. This year we're updating the bikeway shapefile again this month, and we're going to do the same metric update. And then we're going to tie all of those strategies that we've talked about, and we should probably revisit to make sure that this is what we can commit to for the next couple of years, to implement the bike plan. So we have already had a work plan based on a lot of the BAC to-dos, essentially, a lot of the things that we've been stressing at the BAC, which is why we've broken out into work groups like the maintenance work group. We're working towards going to a traffic detour work group, but we just do not have the capacity to do that right now. And yeah, so working through those things and making sure that we're actually, it takes a lot of effort to complete these actions from the bike plan because they're so big. They affect the system. We're trying to make systemic change. I feel I am trying to make systemic change at the city. So it takes a lot of effort. But I'd like to revisit our work that we did on the biannual report and be ready to kind of publish that over the next few months. So that's something, look out in your emails that's what I can be able to provide. And I hope that we can start working through those for the next, the last 3 meetings of the year with the BAC. So that's 9A. Are there any comments on that?
Hey, Melissa. I have a reply and an answer on the question for including EJ communities into Vision Zero. I've been working with Lauren on the high injury network data and the public map that's in the Let's Talk Houston Vision Zero website, where people are able to kind of comment in and say where they feel safe or unsafe. And one of the things that we've been looking at and interpreting the data is how to better highlight the gaps. So like, where are people avoiding? And then also, what kind of like environmental justice or socioeconomic metric that we can include in the weighting process to see, how we need to prioritize things, because obviously some areas with a little bit more influence or resources might be able to be on the ball with projects and highlight it over others. So we're trying to uplift those communities. And one of the things that we're trying to do with the data is figure out how best to do it. So I just wanted to say that we are acknowledging that. And I've been looking at a few environmental justice indices that we can incorporate in the data and the high injury network map.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. You're doing great work. I appreciate you. Okay, so just to go through these a little bit more, so we have, this 2-year implementation plan, which is essentially our bike plan biennial report, and we're going to take that very seriously. Installing 25 miles of high comfort bike facilities is what we talked about, and kind of workshopping that in a way that makes sense for both our partners and the city, is what I'm hearing. We want to be really specific about what the city can do, because we want to make changes within the city and making sure that the city is functioning in a way that advances safety as a priority. So that's why we've kind of focused on that, because we have the power to change the city with this plan. We don't necessarily have the ability to dictate everything that other partners do, obviously, but especially with biking, we've noticed obviously that we lean very heavily on our partners, and it is very important that we all have kind of an agreed upon goal with that. And so I think we've already kind of touched on that with the biennial report, so we can put, that overall ambitious goal for our community at large in this action as well. So being specific about what the city is going to do versus what we hope that what our partnerships can do. The third one is linking Vision Houston goal to citywide design standards for bike facility treatments based on land use context, number of lanes, medians, and speed. This is something, basically updating the IDM with our citywide design standards. This is something that is still being fleshed out. And I think maybe Brian or Lauren could speak to in more detail. But this is always something that we're trying to do, I think, in the Bicycle Advisory Committee is updating the treatments, or updating our design standards. And then the last one is analyzing the high injury network specifically around bicycle crashes, and identifying contributing factors related to that. That was what I was talking about, of going deeper with the high injury network and identifying those elements that can contribute to these crashes. We'll use these findings for implementation of bikeways or other enhanced bike safety countermeasures. And this could also be specific to something we've talked about here is trail crossings. And we've gotten some, comments around the fact that there's basically stop signs on like Columbia Tap or Spring Street Trail. If you've been on any of those, there's often, the bike trail has to stop and then traffic continues going through, and it's kind of confusing. It's also not necessarily the safest thing. A lot of folks, disregard those signs along the trail, And I think part of our study with the Columbia TAP, and I mean, I think maybe Amar could chime in about that, but you know, part of that was also to adjust those signage, like the signs, and understanding not only what street you're crossing, but also thinking about who has the right of way at those intersections. And another thing that we've also talked about is no right turn on red, or other areas that other kind of intersection treatments that could be improved, that could improve our trail crossing specifically. Like, do we have an actual crosswalk with like with our green stamps showing that this is a bike crossing and other things? So like improving visibility of these crossings as well might be something that we would want to consider. So this is kind of our section on biking. The rest of this section is essentially walking, any pedestrian improvements that would also somewhat improve things for bicyclists. There's also a section on making, or an area on making connecting to transit safe. And some of this is connecting walking and biking spaces to transit facilities. So this is going to be your first last mile connections, looking at sidewalk improvements, bike network, coordinating all bike network and transit network extensions with bike share services, for first last mile connections, for boost corridors. Yes, Robin.
Hi, sorry. I don't want to interrupt, but I have a thought. It's across. It's again this coordination piece, and I'm not sure where it fits, but I think it's really important that we not lose this idea. Mm-hmm. One of the cool things about the new infrastructure design manual updates that Public Works put into effect in July is the city of Houston has now reduced the size of the design vehicles for our major thoroughfares. Like, we used to have streets that were likely to have 12-foot wide travel lanes and be a particular size because they might occasionally have really big over-the-road trucks on them. And conceptually, the city has said, you know what? Most streets don't have giant trucks on them most of the time. And there's now a threshold that says you actually have to have a certain percentage of truck traffic in your traffic volume on a street before we're going to design it for those really big streets, right? But so that's cool because it allows streets to be narrower, which shortens crossing distances for pedestrians, and it will cause drivers to inherently drive more slowly, like not more slowly overall. It reduces excessive speeding. So more people will drive the right way on a street that's right sized for ordinary vehicles. There's a corollary piece though for the city, and then there's a tie into HGAC that I hope we will capture somewhere. The first is the fire department and solid waste are both gigantic purchasers of gigantic vehicles. And in other jurisdictions, fire departments that are serious about life safety and not just fire safety are choosing fire equipment, service vehicles that have a more compact footprint, they're more maneuverable, and that the cab includes much better windows and visibility to vulnerable road users on the street next to them. And so one of the ideas is that we need the City of Houston Fire Department to look really thoughtfully, that they're going to continue to buy more fire trucks year in and year out for the rest of forever. We need to be really thoughtful about what type of fire trucks we're buying. And the same for solid waste vehicles and any other large fleet vehicles that the city buys. But then there's another piece I want us to leverage and not lose, which has to do with our partnership with HGAC. Our MPO has a program called HGAC Buy, which is a cooperative purchasing program that supports hundreds and hundreds of agencies, not just here in Harris County, but across the country. And there are a couple of people over at HGAC who write procurement specs for fire trucks and solid waste vehicles that then get used not only by agencies in our area, but across the country. And so I would love to see us, it's again, this idea of using the city of Houston as our moral authority to help pull more people on the right page. I would love us to help HGAC write a much more thoughtful Vision Zero oriented purchasing spec, a procurement spec for the fire trucks and the solid waste vehicles they're going to help all kinds of agencies buy, that are then, you know, tied into this life safety idea and not just, hey, I've got the biggest fire truck.
Okay. Awesome.
So it's really in the weeds, but I don't want to lose it. And I don't know where it goes, but I hope that helps.
Definitely. Thanks, Robin.
Sure.
Hey, Melissa, this is Tom.
Hey, Tom.
I don't know if it's addressed elsewhere within this document, but do we address reviewing ordinances with respect to making our streets and sidewalks safer? So, for example, you know, you mentioned the no right turn on red, but you know, things like distracted driving, maybe tweaking the safe passing ordinance so that it requires that distance even next to bike lanes where it currently doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of things that come to mind. I don't know where that would fit in.
Right. So there was safe passing ordinance next to bike lanes. We also talked about biking in the sidewalk, right? Biking in the crosswalk.
Right. Exactly.
So notice that I went through the bike plan safety actions again last week, and they also have, you know, we do have small bans on biking on the sidewalk, and that's in like economic development areas, like economic districts. I can't remember exactly what the words were.
Business districts, yeah, right.
Business districts.
Hey, Melissa, this is Sharon. I just wanted to jump in on that because, you know, one of the areas I covered was making driving safer. And I know we're in the bicycle program, but I want to mention that we talked about legislation and legislative issues, and we addressed in making driving safer, you know, to address the ordinance of not texting while driving. So we are looking at issues like that actually kind of coincide with biking. But I just wanted you to know it's actually in the making driving safer, but it's about not texting and driving, and we're looking at how we can introduce that legislation again, because I don't know if you know, Tom, it was done before and we turned it down. We didn't pick it up. So how do we reintroduce that? What other type of legislation can we address that would make Vision Zero win-win for all, including bikes?
Hello, this is Alejandro.
Hey, Alejandro.
Yes, kind of like tag teaming what Sharon and Tom were mentioning. Something that was brought up talking with Nathan from Bico was at the trails, riding the trails, and then like interacting or coming across like the intersections where cars are passing. It never occurred to me, but he brought up a good point of why do at the trails, riding on the trails, coming into the intersection, do they have stop signs, right? I guess, you know, if it's going to be a stop sign, why is it not a four-way stop? And we noticed this like very apparently because, you know, where Edo Bico is at, the Columbia Tap runs into Emancipation Street. There's like cars constantly passing by, like super, like, you know, 35, 45 miles an hour, and hardly ever stop for pedestrians crossing Emancipation. And that's a really busy intersection there for cyclists and pedestrians there. All kinds of people are crossing that street, and we noticed that. Well, I started noticing more that riding the trails, that stop signs are facing the trail instead of like streets. I don't know what ordinance is in effect right there for the city, or how the I guess the legal stuff is for like setting up stop signs, or I don't know, yielding to pedestrian signs at crosswalks.
Yes. So this is something we kind of talked a little bit about kind of putting into the high injury network, and it seems like it's almost its own thing because it has come up so many times at the BAC of thinking about that signage at trail crossings and seeing where all those trail crossings are and how can we remedy that all at once. Because yes, that's something I've been getting I've been getting emails related to like that right of way issue of why are the stop signs on the trail. So that's definitely something that we're aware of and we're trying to add to the Vision Zero area because it is confusing for folks. I think that's more of a design issue than like a law change or like ordinance change.
Melissa, another thing that came up in one of our recent meetings was adjusting the traffic light timing, which you all have done along Allen Parkway, and I think also at Sawyer where the MKT Heights Trail crosses, but there's several other locations where that should be addressed also that could really improve the safety of intersections.
Definitely.
Hey, this is Amar. Can I jump in?
Yes.
So there was one thing that was a key issue that came up in the recent past, and BAC Houston was trying to push, but it didn't get through the legislative change. Was when a bicyclist is at a crosswalk, means because they are on the bike, they get. They are not legally. They're supposed to. There is something of the interpretation is that you are supposed to get out, get off the bike and walk your bike across, unless there is a bike trail marking signage. So there was one push being pushed at the state legislature to address that yielding to pedestrians and bicyclists at a crosswalk. The other thing could be, what are some of the short-term solutions in addressing that issue? And I think so some of the trail high injury network piece could address that, but that is a broader policy issue and stuff like that, that if that is an important one for our region, I'm sure it's important one for the rest of the Texas, that if we need to make that a legislative priority, then we need to push it forward. Last legislative session, it did not go through. I know Clark and some of the other people were working on it from BAC Houston last year. It may be worth looping up that one again in the discussions with the legislative session, gearing up for next year.
Definitely. We've already reached out to somebody in the police department because that was something that they wanted to see changed as well. So we're working towards. We recognize that that's a state issue. I like the idea of looking at that as a comprehensive like trail crossing, identifying where we can, implement those markings everywhere in the short term. And yes, we are working towards a state law, and I think that might be something that we should try to incorporate.
Hey, Melissa, I want to chime in on. I love the idea of having an explicit legislative advocacy piece of our Vision Zero action plan, for which they're inherently not things the city of Houston can own per se, because we require the legislature to act on them, but they're probably 4 or 5 different measures that have come up previously that we could fight for on the state level that would help us. I like the one about dealing with cross paths and whether a pedal cyclist has to be dismounted to be protected or not. We've got to clear that up. A related one is some states have gone to drivers must stop before turning across people in the crosswalk. Instead of yield to cyclists, they have to stop first and then proceed with caution. That would be a good one. A third one that got some traction last session but didn't pass is prima facie speed limit of 25 instead of 30 or 35. And why that's useful is it would allow the city of Houston to immediately drop the speed limit on residential streets all over the region without having to incur the cost of posting a bunch of signs. So the prima facie speed limit's another one. Some others I would have to go back to my notes to remember some more, but someone else may chime in. But I would love to see us explicitly call out some legislative asks as part of this action plan.
Hey, this is Amar. Just to add on, I concur with Robin's comments. if you want to do neighborhood bikeways, which is probably going to be the easiest way to implement the bikeway network within neighborhoods connecting to BioGreenway system, having that speed limit drop to 25 miles an hour is a critical part. Otherwise, it's going to be challenging. Just to go along with that, it is critical for the city to adopt a pedestrian bicycle safety sort of design guidelines or staff toolkit or whatever you want to call it. We had lobbied for it 2 years ago. It did not happen. So if the city wants to implement something, it is important for the city to develop that. What is the guidance for making safety improvements for neighborhood bikeways? It's really critical because we as the precinct dropped a number of projects because we could not reach consensus with the Houston Public Works on some of those projects. So because our goal was to build all ages and abilities, and if you cannot you cannot do a neighborhood bikeways where people are the 85th percentile is still over 30 miles an hour. So that is a critical one for the city to also address as a part of this.
Got it. Thanks, Amar. Okay, we have a couple of things in the chat. Updating the bike plan map would be useful. So we are working on that, specifically Memorial from Kirkwood to Eldridge connecting, currently showing as programmed. So we are working on updating the bike plan map. That's how we're updating shapefile now. And so the data will be there, and then we are hoping to launch by like the end of the month. And Jamila did also hear Robin's note concerning Vision Zero and safety-related requirements for bulk purchased vehicles through HGAC Buy. So she'll be passing that on to others at HGAC.
I just have a quick kind of question comment. I'm wondering how much of this list here is programmatic. I'm thinking of, Sunday streets, and, coronavirus has, been the best thing for roadway fatalities since anything else. And how can we make sure that the Sunday Streets program continues and is expanded? And I'm not sure if that kind of belongs in this list or if it needs to be referenced somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I know that Sunday Streets is something we've addressed with the biennial report pretty much at the end of last year. So that's something we can definitely add to, or, say that that's something that we want to commit to for the next 2 years for the bike plan implementation. I'm not sure how it fits in terms of like the safety component. I would see like Sunday Streets as like an encouragement component. But, tell me if I'm wrong. Totally wrong. Because I think we have to tackle, the bikeway, when we think about like the bike plan implementation, we're tackling like all different angles. I'm trying to focus on like the safety elements and how we can make biking safer, which will encourage folks to ride more, and ridership will be up, encourage folks, help us build out the network, all those other goals that we have in the bike plan too.
I want to make mention too of Sunday Streets. I think that's a good point, Jessica, but I know Sunday Streets was having some challenges, and I'm not sure how far they're even going to take that program in the city of Houston. So it might be mindful to kind of wait and see what their plan is also before we include that in there, because I remember last year the participation was down. The program was kind of taking a second look to see how to best proceed or if they should proceed. So we might want to get a little bit more information on that program before we list it.
May I just add a comment on Sunday Streets? I think I want to come at it slightly differently, Sharon, with all due respect. I think I think we need an open streets, Sunday streets, Ciclovia program. I think the way we were coming at it was we had a very specific way we were coming at it that I think was inherently limited and constrained by staff capacity in the mayor's office of special events. And I think from a broader standpoint, we can't afford as a city and a region to define our programs narrowly so that they're constrained and under-resourced. We need to figure out how to make that program robust. I think it needs to be a goal that we're going to figure out how to give it new life and scale it up, knowing that it may need a new approach. Does that make sense?
It does, and I see your point. I just know that from a mayor's office point of view, it not being our program, we don't have a lot of control over it. So we have to kind of see where the direction that they're going to take the program, I think, and then not to try to dismiss it because it was a great program. It is a great program, but we need to know what the mayor's office is going to do in their leading in that program design. And certainly if it's incorporated in Vision Zero, that's a great thing because everything that's under the umbrella of Vision Zero is about safety, and about for the benefit of the pedestrians, the cyclists, the people that are driving. But I just remember the challenges on that, and I just want to hear and know more about how the mayor's office is proceeding with that program. It's the choice between the mayor's office and Cigna, and the concerns were coming from Cigna more so than the mayor's office. So that's why I kind of have a hesitation there, but I do think that you make a good point, and I'm not trying to exclude it. I just want to know where we are so that we don't get in the weeds, and we can, as Melissa was saying, kind of focus on what we know we can do and keep that in the background. If they keep moving forward, that's great. We've always supported that program, but it is a mayor's office, a special events program, and led by Cigna.
Well, what I'm hearing from Robin is this should maybe not be in the mayor's program, in the mayor's office.
That's exactly my in another city, you might figure out how are we going to do the traffic control to shut down the street, and then that's it. It doesn't have to be a programmed event. I mean, I loved dancing Zumba for the first time with the Healthy Houston partners. That I looked ridiculous and it was fun.
Yeah.
And I realized they're capacity constrained, but I don't feel like that's an inherently essential part of an open streets program.
Right. I think our goals and what we would like to see out of what transportation advocates would like to see out of a Sunday streets program is pretty different than
it's very and it's not, hey, we're going to hit Westheimer once every 3 years when it's fair to come back to them, but Westheimer could be a Sunday street once a quarter every year forever. There need to be multiple ones across the city at the same time, which is inherently not possible if you have one department trying to run a very tight, highly scripted event that the mayor has to be at. If we think more broadly about what Sunday Streets is, I think it would scale up pretty easily and on a much more modest budget.
Sounds like a good position. And again, because it's coming from Cigna, I think that's more of a challenge than actually the mayor's office. I think I see your point. It's a very good point. We'll have to see how it works out, how it pans out. The issue again was coming from Cigna, and maybe it's because they didn't have, say, the leadership that the transportation division would provide, or that the bicycle advisory committee would help them. But some of the challenges were coming from the Cigna directly, and they're the ones that were put in on the program. So I think we just dig a little more and find out more and see where we can take it.
Yeah, I think it really just comes down to figuring out why is it not working out for them, but really thinking about maybe is this something that Public Works or planning needs to commit to as its own program, and how would that work? Yeah.
And we can, and I would really like to develop kind of some type of language around how the BAC wants to see Sunday Streets or an open streets event continue and be consistent. And also, by the way, I mean, the Toll Road Authority is thinking about doing open streets events, y'all. If the Toll Road Authority is doing it, the city of Houston can do it outside of the events office.
There are a couple comments in the chat. I just want to point this out, and then we may be moving on for time purposes to Mr. Dodson's efforts and questions and discussion. So Kevin wanted to second the point of Alejandro about the stop signs and the bike paths and where they're crossing. So where the bike paths cross residential streets, there are stop signs every block for cyclists. Are useless and practical and are ignored. The stop signs should be for the cars, not people. Nicholson bike path and the stretch along Spring Street from Sawyer to downtown come to mind. But first, oh yeah, and he also said, but my first but not last meeting, and I'm blown away by the resources devoted to improving bike access and safety in this car crazy city. Thank you. You're very welcome. I worked very hard. I appreciate it. So yes, Alejandro also says, thanks, Kevin. So I think if you guys have other ideas or thoughts, please send them to me. If there's anything else I can provide you that would make that easy for you to do, if you guys feel compelled to write on behalf of the BAC, you might miss a deadline. So that's why I wanted to make sure that, you know, we could all talk together with our BAC members, understanding our timeline constraints on the Vision Zero action plan.
Hey, Melissa.
Yes.
What is there included related to enforcement? Just curious. I mean, so I think so. The open streets is like the outreach education, and then I'm trying to think about what is there related to enforcement, or is that not included in this section?
So that is more in the overarching section, and this is what's being heavily revised right now,
Okay.
especially in light of everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter and defund the police and police, what is this called? The Mayor's Police Reform Task Force recommendations.
Okay.
So you'll find it under culture, ensuring Houston's traffic laws meaningfully discourage unsafe driving behavior, but we also don't want to put people in more harm's way, thinking about traffic laws and you know, we have to think more about what the enforcement side of this needs to look like. So some of these may be going away, and you know, thinking more thoughtfully about how we can think about Vision Zero in light of the Mayor's Task Force recommendations should be coming out this month, as well as working with Vision Zero cities to have that larger conversation, rethinking traditional police enforcement.
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of the 5 E's of you know, bicycle design, and I was just thinking, are we making sure that everything in the 5 E's is included related to bicycling? If it gets captured in a broader goal under enforcement, then that is fine. I just want to make sure that we cover it from the BAC standpoint. We know these are all covered. All the 5 E's are covered.
Okay.
Not the 5 E's, not the 5 E's of enforcement.
Oh yeah, 5 E's of, I'm sorry, of bicycling, of the bike plan, really, right?
Yeah, one of those E's is education. Is that addressed anywhere as far as like driver training or, you know,
yes,
focused on bicycle and pedestrian safety?
Yes. So I think around like communication, there's some education, program education around traffic laws at intersections. There's a lot around education, thinking, oh, here's a whole approach around education on overarching.
All right.
Developing new education resources for new drivers. And I did speak to Lauren about this, of thinking more about, we've talked about improving driver's ed for fleet share, and incorporating specific education around sharing the road with bicyclists and pedestrians. So, you know, how can we be more specific about this through municipal courts or through even our own like fleet share conversations? Like we have our you know, city fleet share, as well as, you know, targeting other fleets, like private sector fleets.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, one area where sort of the design issues and this is Amar again, and the sort of the community interaction sort of interacts is also what you have seen in the way what other cities are doing in how public spaces get used, like the what is that parking thing where they take a parking spot and convert it into a parking day. So events like that or spaces like that, like painting or reducing the crosswalk width at intersections, but painting it in such a way that the community has some. So I'm trying to think about how do you capture opportunities for design and interaction of and more of the people sort of the like that part of like the open streets part of it. How do you get some of those kinds of ideas incorporated in some way so that that is what builds awareness about how streets because if someone is always sitting in the car and they have no clue of what walking on the street or crossing the street feels like, then it's going to be very difficult to change behavior. So getting people out of the car is to be able to walk and bike and cross an intersection and reflect on their own driving behaviors is an important part of this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I don't know, Mar, if you heard about like revisiting the biennial report and being really specific on our basically our strategies to implement the bike plan over the next 2 years. We've been working off of everything that we've been saying at the BAC, but I think it'd be great for us all to like kind of commit to this is what we're doing. And of course, if other things pop up, like we want to see this stuff completed in the next 2 years. So aside from just the Vision Zero action plan, that's going to be a 2-year process. We want to also get this kind of this BAC or biennial report like very specific so that we're covering all those 5 E's of the bike plan as well. And so if we can't necessarily fit in some of this stuff, or maybe we can't commit in a timely manner to some of these things, like maybe Sunday Streets requires, more more looking into as to how this could be basically carried over to the planning department or public works, that might be something that we can put in the bike plan biennial report and commit to through there.
Yep. One thing really from the project stand, since this is an infrastructure committee, from a project standpoint, we need to, that's why I was making the comment about the neighborhood bikeways. Neighborhood bikeways are a critical way for people, especially in the light of COVID. I take pictures all the time and I see kids or parents trying to cross our roadways to get from one side of the neighborhood to another side, or get from a neighborhood to the Bayou Greenway system. And I think so that the reason I made the comment about the pet bike safety issue is that is associated with Vision Zero, and that is one that can probably align much better with the bike plan implementation also. So all you're doing is making the most challenging part of someone's travel, making safety improvements, and be able to get a network of bikeways, safe streets, or whatever you want, the slow streets, safe streets, whatever you want to call it, get connected. So then you don't have as much investment in terms of infrastructure to do, and that I think so. The city dollars could go a much longer way as compared to any other kind of a project, any other kind of major capital projects.
Definitely. Okay, thanks, Amar. So in the light of time, I just want to make sure, interest of time, I just want to make sure that we get to Mr. Dodson's great work and effort around addressing a couple of these things, a couple of projects that happened recently. Recently completed bikeway projects. This is focusing on capital improvement projects. And we shared these public comments back in July. At our BAC meetings, we're focusing on Mathewson Lane and Memorial Drive. I have your PowerPoint presentations if we want to go over that really quick.
Yeah.
Or if you want to just open
yeah,
it
if you could just put up Mathewson first. I'll introduce myself real quickly. I'm a commuter and utility cyclist out in the Energy Corridor area. And I want to thank Melissa for letting me get this off my chest. Okay, I ride around and two things bothered me. I had a hard time figuring out how to give some feedback. The one that I think is rather serious is how Mathewson Lane ended up getting done. It's a basically completely new street out on the west side. If you go to the next slide, please, Melissa.
I apologize. I just accidentally gave myself time for the difficulties here, technical difficulties.
Okay, and so what happens? We ended up, and I'll show you a picture on the next slide of placing the bike lane in the door zone, which is really dangerous for inexperienced cyclists, and that's who we're trying to encourage with bike lanes. And I won't go through the details, but there were absolutely some things that could have been done instead of what was done. If you go to the next slide, I've got a picture. You can see that the bike lane was placed right next to the door zone, and so either if you know if you know that a door is going to open on you, you get out away from it, or potentially somebody gets seriously injured. So I was and like I said, I can understand that maybe you have to do this sometimes in places where you're trying to fit stuff in, but I sure don't see that on a completely new stretch of road being built. So I would hope that the designers and the design manual and all the, I know there's a lot of specs and technicalities, but when we finish a project design, I sure hope we don't see any more of these in Houston. So that's the one that I think is, that worries me. Okay. If you go to the it was in the toolkit that you shouldn't do it, but I have gotten some feedback that the toolkit wasn't adopted, and reasons. I can appreciate technicalities, but at the same time, when you get done and look at it, you go, boy. So that's the one that worries me. I do want to touch briefly on the Sharrow experience out in West Houston. That's that other slide, Melissa. Real briefly, Brittmore was rebuilt roughly 14-foot outside lanes back in 2015. Sharrows were put in all along it. And then Memorial had a couple Sharrows put in recently. If you go to the next slide, yeah, the Sharrows on Brittmore, I had a lot of fun calling 311 about, well, okay, let's repaint them, and they said, no, this isn't no, that's not going to be repainted, which brings up the question of why put them there in the first place. Technically, that lane is mostly narrower than 14, so it might make sense. I used to take the lane on Brittmore. I now I don't hug the curb, but I'm 3 foot off the curb. Now, if you go to Memorial on the next slide, I'm sorry, that's the details on Brittmore on the next slide. On Memorial, I go down there, and there's this Sharrow sitting in the middle of the road, and it's a 15-foot outside lane. Now, since May, I have not seen any more Sharrows put on Memorial. So I don't understand. I think I don't understand what happened. I'm satisfied with, if that Sharrow when it rubs off, that's fine, and we're done. But the whole thing just looked like it wasn't thought through. Okay. So again, I hope that our standards and our practices are going to give us some better product than that in the rest of the city in the future. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
So is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Dotson or the city?
Well, I'd like to hope that what Brian has stated is correct and that we won't be doing this in the future. And this comes either from outdated design or misapplied design. But I'd like to hear, your perspective on that, Melissa, or anyone else from the city on, how this happened and what we're doing to keep it from happening in the future. And also, of course, we had a meeting on maintenance just a week ago, but Brian's got an excellent point. Why put these things in if you're not going to repaint them when they fade away?
Hey, can I also add piggyback on your comments? This is Amar again. The other piece related to what Brian mentioned is I'm sorry. I just lost my thought there. I'll get my comment back in a few minutes. I'm sorry. I just lost my thought. Go ahead, Melissa, respond.
Sure. So my thoughts from last month and kind of sending this off to Public Works and get basically Ian's perspective, let's be real, was that sometimes it does happen where we are designing things in advance of when we're going to be able to fund construction. And so even though we do have better design standards now, if it's being constructed today, it may have been, especially for the CIP, this is my understanding, and Public Works, can correct me if I'm wrong. But things may have been designed, years ago and then are being constructed today. And so there has been, since we talked about it last month, I believe the BAC was thinking about, how do we identify these other things that may have been designed, and is it feasible to review that design with today's standards before it goes into construction? Or whenever it does receive construction funding, is there a way through the process that we can review that design and bring it up to standard, or would that just be insanely cost prohibitive or timing prohibitive? I mean, it's a question of how do we just prevent this from happening again?
Hey, just to add on to that, this is also an issue with there are different divisions in Public Works and Engineering. And so when we were doing the bikeway projects, a lot of times you can see construction going on, and we have built the bikeway that gets ripped apart because we didn't know there was another construction project, city construction project going on that's going to do that. Had we known that, we could have designed it in such a way that we don't implement that small section until the construction happens. Or the other part of it is like in Midtown, there's another project where it's a waterline project. It's going to rip off the pavement and it's going to put back the same amount of pavement for a 2-lane residential street. 50 feet of pavement is being put back. And so now we are working back. So I think so just making sure that we can coordinate better on some of these things. And there is a clear picture of what means. I think so. Part of it is also, it's I know Ian is overwhelmed, but Ian's and yours teams needs to have some amount of time to review and coordinate something so that if a project is, if it's a waterline project that's going to rip the street apart, you all have the opportunity to review, comment, and see those designs and make sure that if there's a bikeway, then that gets incorporated as a part of the design where possible. Just that was a very frustrating issue we had to deal with the bike plan when we were constructing it.
Thanks, Amar. I know that we're starting to coordinate more with the project prioritization group in Public Works, and they're prioritizing CIP projects, and so they know more about what is going to be ripped up and replaced over time. And so whenever we're looking at those short-term bikeway improvements, we run it past them of that list of what are we thinking about, developing a design concept, going into design, going to construction, so that we know that it's not going to be ripped up in the next year or 3 years or so. But apart from that, that's the coordination we've been doing currently.
Melissa, do they have I mean, as part of their procedures, that whoever the they is, that have access to the bikeway map, so that if a project that they're involved with is going to impact a part of the bikeway network, then they have to check a box that, hey, they coordinated with, you know, you or somebody that can say, okay, we need to have some folks on BAC take a look at this, or someone who knows what's going on, so that the impact on the bikeway system will be considered. And, you know, if there's a way to, you know, minimize impacts or to use it as an opportunity to improve the network, we could do that.
Definitely. So that's part of our bike plan update, or our bike network update. So we're going to provide that that shapefile as well to like Public Works and whatever. I know that they're trying to retire their GIMS or GIM system. So whatever their new, I guess, like mapping service is going to be, we'd like them to be able to have the most up-to-date information, and that goes along with permitting as well. We've been reluctant to do a hold or something like that on a project, or like a permit or something that may change, or maybe, you know, partial reconstruction or something in the right-of-way, because that has created some, I'm not really quite sure, but we've been kind of hesitant to do that kind of thing where it's like check a box and you have to check with us before you do that. I think we just really like to be able to give them the best information possible, and then you know, be able to contact us directly whenever necessary. But I hear you, and I'm going to write that down and see if there's something else we can do about better coordinating between Public Works and planning.
Hey, Melissa, this is Robin. I like the idea that you're turning it around to they need to be making sure they've incorporated the bikeway stuff and not you guys checking in with them on bikeway projects. But there are a lot more water projects and wastewater projects under our streets than there are street reconstruction projects. So we've definitely got to put those departments in the driver's seat of owning, hey, is there something I need to be doing with my project that's going to make walking and biking and transit better? The one idea that occurred to me, well, I think it was Brian was talking, is sometimes the project, like the concrete and the forms and all of that stuff gets approved real early on, and it could change. I'm wondering though, paint, the pavement marking piece and the signage piece seems like it could be updated more readily. And I'm wondering if we want to have some sort of process that looks at old street design plans that are, you know, slowly getting funded and built, but may have been sitting on the shelf longer than our IDM guidelines deal with. I'm wondering if we could create an opportunity to at least improve the paint. So maybe the concrete's going to get built in a particular roadway configuration, but you know, if now we know 15th with Sharrows is a terrible idea, we don't have to paint that, even if that's what we built.
Okay, yeah, we can look into that.
Thanks.
And this is Brian. I would say that just more engagement will help, because I'm suspect that the people that are building this have not a clue as to, you know, what it should be. Okay, because they've been building for cars forever, right? And getting more engagement and, you know, getting them up to speed on, wait a minute, you know, you don't want to, you know, you don't want to do this. That lets them start owning the need to put something in that's useful. I'm sure they want to put something in that's useful, but they probably just don't have any background in it. So I think engagement, sustained engagement. I know in my business, sustained engagement often helps on things like that, and it may help here also.
Melissa, one last comment. This is Anna Ramirez. One last comment would be also apart from sustained engagement, there's also like sustained budget for refreshing pavement markings. And I don't know if that could be linked to Vision Zero perhaps. I mean, because it might be also a safety issue, you know, making motorists aware of cyclists and having because of the pavement markings, which are retroflective. So I don't know if having or aiming to have a dedicated pot of money either for planning or for in terms of the Vision Zero. I'm not sure if that was captured. I don't know if you can speak to that.
Around a sustained budget for refreshing pavement markings in Vision Zero?
Yeah, like that would be part of like maintenance, I guess. But like I know that Ian had mentioned that they've gone private on some of that. The city of Houston has. So that they basically were saying it's going to be like, you know, how not as frequent perhaps. So if there is like a separate pot of money, either in the planning department or through Vision Zero, that could be one way to address refreshing some of the sharrows and other pavement markings that help signal to the motorists, since most of the bike facilities that are on road. I don't know if you can speak to that or just as
I
a
think
suggestion.
I don't think it's currently in the, I'm not sure if it's in the Vision Zero action plan right now. But I can definitely take this back to Lauren and see what she thinks and where, if it's in there or not. We've already kind of signaled that we probably do need to have like a very specific maintenance component, if not for bicycling, then for all road users, because, you know, we have received a lot of those comments of, you know, maintenance equals safety, or lack of maintenance equals you know, not being safe, because then you'll have to veer out of your bike lane in order to, you know, continue along your way. So,
And this is just like maybe an item like you're saying under maintenance, just the pavement markings, refreshing
yeah.
those.
So in the Vision Zero goals, action 3B, so it's part of the overall arching approaches. There is an action for creating set aside funds for capital projects that include safety. So that might be the place to house and be more specific and, you know, maybe have that conversation and talk about pavement markings. So it might just be a matter of being more specific, or at least being more inclusive.
Okay. I can take a look at that after this meeting. Are there any other thoughts or questions or feedback on either these particular CIP projects or potentially future CIP projects? Because I'm hearing more engagement would help, maybe a sustained budget for refreshing these programs, thinking about the coordination between Public Works and planning, and the planners in Public Works. And thinking about improving the striping or marking after design, maybe after the design or after, you know, we've already funded construction, the roadbed will be what it is, but is there some way we can retrofit a bike lane, since we are doing bike lane retrofits currently? Not an ideal scenario, but at least we'd be able to get to a higher level of comfort than sharrows on Memorial Drive.
Yeah, well, or just, I mean, just right before you paint it, step back and say, does this make sense? Okay, because you're absolutely right that you can't change concrete. Okay, but you can make these decisions essentially at the last minute without significant change in scope. And I mean, what ended up on Memorial, just to be clear, is there aren't any sharrows other than, you know, that one you see right there, and there's two of them, and they didn't put the rest in. So somebody came to their senses in my book and didn't do the rest of it, and that's good. But you know, let's keep doing that.
Brian, this is Tom Compson. I'd like to hear your perspective on the appropriateness of sharrows on this part of Memorial. I don't get out there often enough to know how busy it is. Does it make sense? Would you consider this an appropriate part of the high comfort network, or is it just something that warns motorists, hey, that expect bicyclists out here and give them room, but you would
I
expect.
tell you what, this one's painful for me. I mean, it's painful. Well, it's not that painful. It's a 15-foot wide outer lane. Okay, so legally, I can't take the lane unless I have a reason to. Okay, now most of West Houston, where I got like a 12-foot lane. I don't have any qualms about taking a lane to protect myself. Okay, definitely not what you're going to consider high comfort, right? And this, the treatment along West Memorial is absolutely not high comfort. I mean, my view on this is that I think a bunch of concrete was wasted putting in a 15-foot lane that I don't know what it does for anybody. I mean, it doesn't help the cyclist and it doesn't really help the cars. I don't understand. A whole lot more concrete was poured than was needed on that. But given that, that's not a bike facility. It just isn't.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay, so, I think that I'll circle back with Public Works on some of these kind of points of, can we do better? How can we do better? How can we kind of refine some of this? And yeah, so if there's no other questions, we can move on to the next agenda item for feedback. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dodson, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me get it off my chest.
Okay. Oh, right. So our next one was 311 complaints and maintenance prioritization. So this was something that we talked about at the last, I think it was infrastructure, maybe it was the July meeting. I think it was the July meeting, where we had a lot of other concerns and public comments around how do we prioritize some of these basic maintenance things. We did talk about, thinking about refreshing a budget for refreshing pavement markings, but we also have issues of, we have infrastructure issues on some streets like, oh my gosh, was it the Waugh Bridge is not going to be constructed for probably a long time because it's also a major capital improvement. But there are maintenance issues currently that folks are calling in and calling 311 about. How are they being addressed? People are having a lot of concerns around getting feedback that from Public Works or from 311 that this is not a priority, so nothing will be done. So looking back on that, we had a couple actions around, I think Jessica was going to send a 311 complaint and give us kind of a feedback of what she heard or what she heard back. And we also were going to have Public Works here. Unfortunately, Ian was not available for our rescheduled meeting. But we're also going to have Ali here. Maybe he can speak to this, but we can at least take some questions back to Public Works around like how do we prioritize these like smaller maintenance improvements that will still help people get out riding, feel safer, and won't accrue like a huge capital improvement cost.
So Melissa, I did go out and take a picture of the seam and sent it to 311, and they sent me back they said that they could not identify the obstacle to safety and closed my request.
And this is the Waugh Bridge.
Yeah.
Seam.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll bet they couldn't because they're looking at it from a motorist perspective. I mean, this is the frustration. I have had zero luck with 311 requests related to bicycling issues. I don't know if anyone else has had any positive results, but I certainly haven't.
I've had positive results relating to speeding, or like people running stop signs. But yeah, I think it's probably just really not clear to them that it's something small compared to a motorist, but like really a big deal if you're using a different mode of transportation. I'm not sure what the right kind of process is for us to kind of notify them or give them maybe an example or a template of what that looks like.
Okay.
Maybe it would have helped if you jammed your bike wheel in the crack and just showed them how that was not a good idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, I only had to risk my life to take the photo.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to call people out, but Ali, Ian, did Public Works give you any points on maintenance prioritization or, the 301 complaints process? How we could do better or how the public can get through to Public Works?
This is Ali here. Yes, I was listening to all these concerns and issues from about the 311 complaints that our people are putting in. I need to circle back with Ian and see what is the best way of, because we always receive all the complaints about from traffic point of view, speeding or signal request or whatnot, U-turns and curbs, all kind of requests. But I'm not sure if there are anything specifically for bike lanes or bike users that we can separate them out or make it a separate listing or priority at this point. I don't think we have any tool to do that for now, but I will discuss this with Ian and see what we can come up with to have this a separate, have it a separate item or separate listing of the issues or safety for the bike drivers, riders.
Okay.
Meantime, but I can say that you can still try to be more, when you make a complaint to 311, submit your request to be more specific, or because they always type in the concern and the explanation. If you can provide with the pictures, that's all I can say for now.
Melissa, this is Anna Ramirez. I was wondering, oh, thank you. I was wondering whether as part of Vision Zero or maybe just as part of the, an action item, BAC, could Vida maybe, like Ali said, maybe there's a toolkit or a visual for 311 people to know what the safety risks are. But maybe, I don't know if maybe some in-house training of the people in 311, like lunch and learn or a 1 hour, 2 hour training of bike safety hazards that could be maybe linked to Division Zero, or as one of the E's, the education. Is there any education or training component that could be done in-house, and in particular with the 311 complaints? Just a thought.
Yes. Jessica posted a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
This is
We need to
Robin.
do something.
I love Anna's idea. And I want to, Sharon talked earlier about the merit of having tasks in our action plan that we know we can get done. It seems like having an action plan item to update the 311 data entry portal, or update the database so that there is a clear and straightforward place to capture safety concerns related for people who walk, bike, and ride transit. That's really easy for an end user, that it's easy for a 311 operator, and then pair that with Anna's professional development piece, I think would be really powerful.
I love it.
This is Brian Dotson. I do have to comment that having used 311 for other things, okay, not cycling, not pedestrian, just stuff. And I communicate, pretty clearly. I just do not have good luck. I mean, it may just be me, but my ability to get anything to happen through 311 has been very, very poor. So I understand the pedestrian cyclist perspective on it, but I have not had a good experience with getting things to happen through 311.
Yeah, I think that this is a shared experience for pretty much everybody, especially if you're trying to talk about specific bike safety issues. I think this has been something that's been on the radar for the bike plan for a while. I know that that was something that when Anita was here with our bike ped coordinator in Public Works, we were working towards, or at least that was on our list around like addressing 311 complaints, making sure we had a bikeway specific component to updating 311. And I think that we need to pick that up again and do it even better for the Vision Zero, like thinking about all road users and how can everybody try to address their safety concerns, like through 311. That would definitely help us out. Any more thoughts on this item? Thank you, Jessica, for risking your life and getting that that 311 request in to try to test the system for us.
Sure thing.
Hope you don't have to do it again for us. That's not okay.
Nope, I've reached my quota.
Great. Okay, so we'll work towards that. I think that's a great point for Vision Zero. So I'll get that to Lauren right after this meeting. And our bikeway project updates. So not much has changed from our last meeting in July. Looking back at, I mean, obviously on the ground there's been a little bit of changes, but looking overall in terms of what's in progress versus what has been completed, Austin Street is still under construction. Gray Street waiting on signals to be turned on. Polk Street's under construction, as well as Cullen by Precinct 1. Yeah, CIP funded projects. So I've updated these mileage numbers, just FYI, because I think Acres Home was a little bit, that was like the entire network mileage for our short-term network, which includes a lot of neighborhood greenways, neighborhood bikeways. But total, it would be closer to 7 miles for CIP funded projects that we're working towards design on. So Acres Home, which is specifically the West Little York section, where we can put a bikeway from about White Oak Bayou to Banjo Street, which connects to the transit center. That is a waiting design. So we have a preliminary design concept that we want to see through to 30% and then go back to the community to assess, whether this works for everybody. Patterson Street and 11th Street or the Patterson Corridor rather, and 11th Street are in design. Up to about 30%, so haven't quite met this 50% threshold. And North Main is a project that we've thought about for a 4 to 3 lane conversion for a while, since probably about 2018, where this would be a 4 to 3 lane conversion where we could add bike lanes on either side. This is being funded by the council member of District H, Councilmember Cisneros, and so that is the design of the concept is underway.
Where is that run from, Melissa?
This would be North Main from Boundary to P-Core as it stands currently, or what the documents that I've seen. On our plan, it runs much farther. I think goes up to Cross Timbers, but I think the phase would be up to P-Core.
Okay, thank you.
Quitman is another project that it will be CIP funded or city funded, and it's being designed with the Greater Northside Management District, and Metro is also involved. So this is the extension of the Metro equipment project. I don't remember exactly what street, but basically getting us to Hardy and Elysian. This is the tie-in to Hardy and Elysian. And then Precinct 1, you know, they're always looking out for future work. And so Southeast Mobility, or the Southeast MLK area, that's still a design concept that we've had. And from my understanding, it's been in design and looking into Northeast Houston area as well as like a next, their next projects.
Just a clarification, we haven't started design on the southeast or the northeast. We are still working on agreements. Just wanted to clarify the status of those two projects.
Okay, thank you. I'll update that.
And by the time you update it and come back to us, we would have started design, but still, I'm just
perfect.
Yeah. I just being honest. Hey, I would suggest that since it's not Acres Homes, all of it, you could at least say Little York / Acres Homes, so that it's clear to people what exactly is the project there in Acres Home.
Okay.
That's one suggestion. Trying to see. So I think so for Northeast and MLK, you can show that the Northeast Houston also the study has been complete. We met with Public Works a couple of months ago, so you can show that the concept is complete. It's
okay.
just I'll see if I have them. I'll send you the miles and other information if you need it.
Oh yes, we need it. So thank you.
The other piece that is not showing here is the Hillcroft corridor, the Southwest Houston, or whatever you want to call it. That's not showing here. That is in study.
Okay. And then our last component here is metros. You know, so if you were up in Cavalcade area, the first phase of Cavalcade is substantially under construction, maybe substantially complete at this point, because I believe it was like 92% complete in July. Then the design is still being under review for the rest of Cavalcade, Leland and Cullen. So that is the segment Leland to Cullen, Leland to Cullen, and then the rest of Cullen from Leland to Polk is in construction. And Quitman is that same portion is being tied at the same time, is being designed at the same time as the city funded project portion. Okay. Jessica says Cavalcade looks good. All right, so in the interest of time, so this was an additional item. I apologize for the time running over. BAC Bikeway project review. So Tom, I don't know if you wanted to just frame this really quick for folks.
You'll have to help me, Melissa. What was this about?
Oh, so thinking about how the BAC has a hand in the bikeway, in reviewing bikeway design.
Oh, right. Yeah, this had come up a few times already today, you know, as a topic. But yeah, it just seemed, you know, like just that list of projects that you went through, you know, that are in various stages, 30%, 60% and so forth. And, you know, I haven't seen any of it. I don't know if anyone else on the BAC has seen it, but, you know, that was something that on the predecessor committee, you know, that I was on 10 years ago or so, we at least occasionally got to see designs for new projects, especially major ones that had impacted or included the bikeway network. You know, usually it was too late for us to have any impactful changes to it, but we had a chance. And I think it would certainly be helpful if we did have the opportunity to review projects at that 30% phase, you know, stage to say, oh, wait a minute, you know, this is veering off, you know, in a direction that won't be helpful.
So I think from the city's perspective, so this has been something we've been thinking about since when Director Pat Walsh was here with us, and you know, it was kind of like, what is the BAC's involvement in the bikeway design review process, and is it, you know, like a special, like you guys are, while you are oh my gosh, thinking about the words. You know, we're appointed by council and the mayor. This is more of an advisory committee and less of like an administrative committee. So it's not, you know, necessarily a place where we are writing off all of the, where we're trying to, you know, check a box and make sure that everybody's on board with every design that we have. I think we try to keep everybody involved in the design process as best as we can. And I would definitely be open to like, how can we streamline that and make sure that the BAC knows about every single, you know, public meeting that we're having or engagement meeting discussion that we're having, because 11th Street and Patterson will be, by the way, like having to go back to doing a little bit more engagement. I'm not sure what that's going to look like, if that needs to be a specific meeting or just an agenda item on like a super neighborhoods meeting. But we've really wanted the BAC to be involved in that, in the higher level process of it all, of especially around project prioritization, like we've talked about today. And so that's kind of where we started at with the new BAC. I am not, you know, I wasn't a part of, you know, BAC process pre, you know, 2018. So I don't know if there were other promises made, you know, around what the BAC could do around design specifically. But I know that sometimes, you know, it's a monthly meeting, it's 2 hours. There's so much that we try to get through in and of itself, and to pour over like specific designs. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we could start doing that if there's consensus among the BAC to want to do that, especially maybe in the infrastructure design or infrastructure subcommittees. But just knowing that that's also going to take away from other stuff that we may want to continue to address, things that may be more systemic and affect multiple projects, like IDM standards or you know, policy changes, program changes, you know, building a neighborhood bikeway toolkit, those types of things. So I'd really be open to like what other people think about this, and what the BAC's hand and role is in bikeway design.
Hello,
Hey.
this is
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so bringing this up, I'm glad this was brought up a little bit, because I did have like a small issue with Cavalcade. It does look good. I do like the design of it, but there was some conversations on Twitter about the floating bus stop. It was just like a small edge of the floating bus stop that had a really sharp corner that I didn't really feel comfortable with. And there was a member that did kind of try to reach out about that, and according to him, like his response was like, things change, and like, you know, the design they just changed the design or something like that. So I wonder, like thinking back about, you know, how Melissa brought up to you that, you know, if we do this, then, you know, it is going to take away from what we're like trying to focus on and whatnot, which I agree, and I think should be set for like kind of like working with like Cavalcade was Metro was in charge of that. So if Metro were like say to reach out like, hey, you know, like what do you guys think of this design? Like anybody from the BAC or ask the BAC to join in sort of design process or whatever, and see how that works out. So yeah, I'm thinking like how can this be improved, or how can we put in our input, not as an administrative, but like as prospective cyclists, you know, like how can we be integrated into the process, not as, you know, as official advisors on our BAC infrastructure meeting, but on the actual projects that are being handled, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that way, you know, this doesn't take away from what the BAC is trying to do, like as an overall concept, and going into the more finer details, like going through a separate panel for that.
Melissa, I like your suggestion of, making sure that we're aware of opportunities, for public comment and input and so forth. Because yeah, I agree with where, Mr. Walsh was coming from on that we should not be down in the weeds, as the BAC. But certainly there's individual members that have that interest, and particularly for projects in our parts of town and so forth. So having that opportunity and awareness of opportunities for public comment would be very helpful.
Yeah, and the fact that you don't feel like you know about every single engagement opportunity is a huge problem. I think the BAC should be the most knowledgeable. Like if you're a BAC member, you should be the most knowledgeable about every single project that's going on, or the engagement that is available right now. Because it's like you guys really help us not only as like a sounding board for a community, but you also help us bring people to meetings and bring people along, and be involved in the process.
Hey, only one project
This
I forgot
is Robin.
to mention.
I don't want us to add meeting. Sorry. Am I competing with Amar? Sorry. I don't want us to spend precious BAC time in the weeds.
Go
I think
Robin.
staying that's good. Yeah.
Amar, did you want to say something?
All right, I can make my comment quickly. The only other project that is missing is Blodgett from Blodgett and TFS stuff between Scott and NS. There's a small project near TSU that is in design. I think the Public Works finally sent us their comments on the study scope.
Yes, things happen so fast that I cannot even keep up.
Get in the car. It's running late. Get in the car.
Robin, did you have another?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to say I like the way you framed it. I concur with Tom's assessment. I like your frame as we need to know, BAC members need to know what the engagement opportunities are so that we can be cheerleaders who help drive engagement to those opportunities and can weigh in ourselves as motivated and inclined to do so. But you're right. If we only have 2 hours in a given month, we don't need to fall into the weeds. I'd like us to stay on a policy level, a step 1,000 feet up, not at ground level.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, this is Amar. I dropped off. I had a bad connection, so I'm on the phone. I just wanted to talk about the project on Blodgett between TSU and along TSU, and I can send the rest of the information on it later.
Okay, that'd be great, and then I can follow that up with everybody, the folks on the call. Okay. Are there any other thoughts? I think Ana Ramirez Huerta had to leave. We have Briar Branch, Gessner to Bunker Hill show up on this. Concrete has not been poured, but end's not finished. So yes, there's the other CIP component. I just got a new list from, well, I need to get a newer list, an updated list from our CIP group at Public Works. But I appreciate Brian's question, and I'll look into Briar Branch. Okay, just in the interest of time, so if there's any public comments, we're happy to take that. I don't want to, prevent people from being able to speak. I know that we are 10 minutes over, and I apologize.
Just real quickly, Lisa Greff, Richard had put together a long list of updates for the various bio-greenways projects. So I think the committee would really be, I know I found it very interesting and helpful, and I just maybe suggest if that's something that Parks Board would feel comfortable in sharing with the committee.
Absolutely. I can give you a quick update just generally in right now and then send you more details. But so in construction, we have about 2 miles of trail happening, one along Buffalo Bayou, another in Hunting. In bidding right now, there's almost 6 miles, and that's along Sims Bayou. And then in permitting is a total of 15, just over 15 miles along Braze, Sims, San Jacinto, and White Oak. So that's my quick update, and then I can send you more details on that if that's of interest to everyone.
Okay. So yeah, are there any public comments or additional announcements? Okay. Hearing none. So this is our next meeting dates. This is the rest of the dates through the rest of the year. I have tentatively scheduled the November and December dates because they're a little bit earlier than we usually do due to holiday weekends and weeks. So let me know if those do not work for us. I also would really like to know your feedback on making these meetings a little bit later in the day because I have heard some feedback earlier this year about them maybe not being the best times for folks or on the BAC or maybe the public. So maybe thinking about 4 to 6 versus 2:30 to 4:30. Love anybody's feedback on that. Doesn't have to be right now though.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, you guys. If that's it, we could be adjourned.
Thanks, Melissa.
4:43.
Thanks.
Thank
you,
you.
Melissa.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Melissa.
guys.